First, make sure a large area of your lead is exposed. Hold the pencil using an overhand grip, like this, to get thick lines, which are great for shading smoothly. The closer your strokes, the better. A regular writing grip will make it difficult to shade smoothly because the lines come out thinner, which can make your shading look scratchy. These strokes will also be more difficult to blend. To shade a large area such as this, decrease the movement in your fingers and wrist, and instead use your elbow and shoulder to achieve a larger range of motion while shading. For even thicker lines, you might want to consider stripping off some of that wood to expose even more lead. You can do that by using a knife or box cutting knife. Anytime you lose your grip or put your pencil down, remember to do a test scribble to make sure your lines are just as thick and smooth before shading your drawing again. The slower you move across the page, the better, because you'll have less gaps. I do have a few gaps across my drawing, so I'm just going to go over it again. This base layer ensures that our drawing will not be the same shade as the paper. This is important because we want the drawing to pop out.
Yeah, you can just sharpen them pretty quickly with a blade, get really sharp tips, or if you
Let's blend all of our shading so it's nice and smooth. Just grab a soft tissue and wrap it around your finger. Lightly blend the graphite out. Since we shaded flatly, I'm just blending in random directions. What we're doing right now is just filling in those tiny valleys in the paper, so our drawing looks less grainy or pixely. If you're getting dark blotches everywhere, use a clean spot on your tissue to continue blending. If you need to blend your shading and you don't want to soften out that clean edge, try using a different blending technique. Fold your tissue lengthwise several times to build up thickness. Use one hand to clamp the top edge. Fold the tissue in to get a sharp corner. Fold it in again, wrapping the tissue tightly around itself, and then again. You should now have a hard pointy tip to do some precision blending with. Clamp your tissue tightly so it doesn't become loose. Then use the very tip to blend along the top edge of your shadow. With some of that graphite stuck to the tissue, we can also use it similarly to how we'd use a pencil. Just be careful when working in lighter areas, because the amount of graphite that gets transferred to the drawing is not always predictable, so it's very easy to mark up the drawing. If you're using very light strokes, that should be just fine.
Another blending tool is just cotton wool. I often just grab a piece of cotton wool, I'll tear a tiny piece off, roll it up, and then I have a tiny little nub. And this allows for a lot softer blending with than with the graphite stick. And often my tools get saturated with graphite, which then allows them to kind of act as a pencil themselves, just a really soft one. So you can get really beautiful soft tones with this. Again, there's a risk if you use this all the time that your work starts to look a little bit flat. So you want to avoid that and just really try to rely on your pencil work and then use these as an extra to just enhance it a little bit more. I use a kneadable eraser. These are amazing. I use this all the time. It's such an incredible tool. You can mold it, so you can kind of get whatever nib you want. You can get quite a sharp point or even kind of a sharp surface like that. I still use my Tombow Mono Zero eraser. I love this tool. Small eraser nib, and you can even sharpen it with the blade to get it even sharper. A fan of them. I found them to be very clumsy and even destructive. They can tear up your paper so quickly, so please be careful with this tool. My problem with it in the past was that it would get blunt too quickly, so I've just gotten used to needing to sharpen it every few seconds. The way that I sharpen it is by pushing it against the table. There's a nice hard kind of lip over here, which if I work with it and get fine lines, this lip very quickly gets blunt. So I'll push it against the table while it's on, and that'll just usually remove a bunch of the eraser until it's sharp again. It's quite wasteful as well, so that's why I don't use them that much.
Edgar Mars razor, which I bought for $5. It's an eraser pencil with a brush on the end. The basic purpose of this brush is to clear the eraser crumbs from your drawings without having to touch them or clear them with your hands. It's made up of these soft nylon bristles, but I think they are a little bit loose. You can see this movement of bristles inside this silver ferrule. And oops, this one came out. Anyways, it's not an oil painting brush, so we can't judge it on the basis of its loose bristles. So let's see the other side. The wood quality looks good, and this eraser tip is also hard enough to bear this much of pressure.
almost forgot about the embossing tools. I mostly use these for very specific textures, primarily fine lines like little hairs coming out of pores or even eyebrow hairs or eyelashes. The embossing tool indents the paper and leaves a shallow groove, which creates a fine line when I move over it with graphite. I found it so useful for textures that are too fine to achieve with the Tombow Mono Zero eraser and my kneadable erasers. That I've tried. To avoid smudging my graphite, I use an acid-free tissue paper underneath my hand. This is kind of crucial if your works are quite dark and have a lot of graphite sitting on the paper. Another big use for the tissue paper is to just cover your work when you're not working on it. I use FIXATIve. A lot of people, I think, have a hard time with fixatives. They can make your artworks look a bit yellow, or if it's not high quality, it can damage the work or even dissolve some of the graphite and soften your details. So is one of the better brands that I've tried, and I haven't had problems with them so far. So that's the fixative that I use. Is it important to have an online website? What a convenient question for this video sponsor, Squarespace. Yes, it is important to have an online website or an online portfolio to help clients find you and to create a platform to make it easy for them to get in touch with you. For me, I just felt that Squarespace did this effortlessly. I never had to patch or upgrade anything. I could register a domain with them or set up an online store. And most importantly, I could design a portfolio and show my work the way that I wanted to. Also, every time I got stuck, their amazing support team helped me out instantly. So if you're looking at building a website, give Squarespace a try. And if you decide that you love them, use this offer code and get 10% off your first purchase. Okay.